My name is Eloine. I'm 28 years old, and my mother called me 3 days before Easter, warm in that specific way that should have been a warning. We miss you, sweetheart. Come for dinner. Just family. I drove 2 hours to get there, windows down, actually hopeful. But when I pulled into the driveway, I counted way too many cars for a family dinner. And when I walked inside, 12 relatives were sitting in a circle around one single empty chair, waiting for me. If you truly love and appreciate your parents, take just 1 second to subscribe to this channel. It means a lot to us. And before you go, tell me in the comments, which country are you watching from? I'd been keeping my distance for months, ever since the holidays turned ugly, and I left their house in tears, swearing I wouldn't let it happen again. But that stubborn, hopeful part of me that never quite learns decided to give it one more chance. She was my mother. They were my family. Surely Easter dinner was just Easter dinner. The drive was beautiful, spring finally showing up, trees blooming along the highway, that golden afternoon light. I sang along to the radio the whole way, telling myself maybe things had actually changed. Maybe the distance had given everyone some perspective. Then I pulled into the driveway and saw the cars. My Aunt Linda's minivan, my Uncle Robert's truck, my cousin Priya's little hatchback. At least 6 more I recognized within seconds. My stomach dropped before my brain even caught up. I sat there for a full minute telling myself I was overreacting, that maybe Mom just forgot to mention a bigger crowd this year. I walked in and the house went quiet in that specific way rooms only go quiet when people have been talking about you. 12 relatives sat arranged in a circle in the living room, not around the dinner table, not in the kitchen, in a circle, with one single empty chair placed dead center, waiting like a spotlight on a stage, like a trap with a cushion on it. My mother stood first, smiling with eyes that weren't smiling at all, and gestured to that chair. Sit down, Eloine. We've all been waiting for you. My legs just moved because I didn't know what else to do. I sat down, surrounded by people who shared my blood, and I have never felt more alone in my entire life. My mother looked at me the exact way she used to look at me my whole childhood whenever I disappointed her, and said 6 words that were clearly rehearsed long before I ever walked through that door. We all agree you're the problem. Nobody flinched. Nobody looked away. 12 people just sat there and let it land, like it was obvious, like it was overdue. I didn't cry. I didn't stand up and leave. I did something that surprised even me. I took a slow breath and stayed, because I had come prepared in a way none of them could have possibly anticipated. 3 years earlier, in a moment I never thought I'd actually need, I had pressed record. I sat in that chair for 45 minutes and let them talk. That was the hardest part, not the words, but the discipline it took to stay still and absorb every single one of them without reacting. It was clearly organized, almost like a lineup. My Aunt Linda went first, saying I'd always been difficult, that even as a kid I made gatherings uncomfortable, that I had a way of making everything about myself. Then my Uncle Robert, who I'd maybe seen 4 times in the last decade, leaned in with practiced gravity and told me I'd disrespected my parents for years and it was time I acknowledged the damage. Cousin after cousin, aunt after aunt, each one delivering their prepared piece, while my mother sat slightly apart with her hands folded, watching her production unfold exactly as rehearsed. During those 45 minutes, I noticed things I think I only caught because I decided not to fight back. Who made eye contact and who didn't. Which relatives shifted uncomfortably. Like some part of them knew this had crossed a line, but they'd already committed too far to pull back. My father never spoke once, sat at the edge of the circle, staring at the floor, and in that silence, I understood something about him I'd spent years refusing to see clearly. When the room finally ran out of things to say, my mother looked at me with the expression she reserved for her finest moments, righteousness mixed with relief, and asked what I had to say for myself. I reached into my bag, pulled out my phone, opened an audio file dated 3 years, 2 months, and 11 days earlier, and pressed play. The room heard itself, not performing, not careful, just itself, raw and completely unguarded, from a conversation that had happened in this same house during Christmas 3 years earlier, when my mother had no idea I'd left my phone recording on the kitchen counter while I stepped out to grab something from my car. Her voice came through the speaker, telling my Aunt Linda that she had always resented how I turned out, that she felt I'd wasted every opportunity she gave me, that she was embarrassed by me, that she wished I were more like my cousin. Her voice, unmistakably hers, and the whole room knew it. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I have ever heard. People stood up, not all at once, but one by one. In that particular way, people leave a room, when they suddenly remember somewhere else they need to be. Within 2 minutes, the circle was empty, chairs sitting alone, hushed voices in the hallway, coats being grabbed, the front door opening and closing, cars starting in the driveway. My mother stayed seated, but she had nothing left to say. My father finally looked up from the floor, and for just a moment, something crossed his face that looked almost like sorrow, though whether it was for me or for himself, I still don't know. I picked up my bag, stood up from that center chair, and walked out the same door I'd come through less than an hour earlier. The spring light was still golden. The trees were still blooming. I sat in my car, and I didn't cry, not because it didn't hurt, but because something in me had shifted permanently. I had spent 28 years trying to earn a verdict from people who had already decided. That Easter, I stopped waiting for their verdict and started writing my own. I drove home with my windows down. I wasn't singing this time. But for the first time, I was completely free.